So we have this session and another session before Christmas, and we'll have 2 weeks off for the holiday break, as we Buddhists say. And then, and we really were, although we didn't tell you, it's a secret, but we've started the course on the Eightfold Path because the first part is right understanding, and the first part of right understanding is karma, and the second part of right understanding is the Four Noble Truths. So you see, we've been at the Eightfold Path for several weeks now, secretly. So we will, what I assume we will do is continue with the other parts of the Eightfold Path in the new year. I have to look and see how that lines up, because we're already slotting up like people to talk about Zen, and once those dates gets fixed, then we have to somehow make the schedule work. Although we might just put something off until after Zen, right, or something. Yeah. We'll see.
Good, we'll get it working.
So, very good. Well, it looks like we're all here, and so let's begin. Are there any questions about suffering? Could we please have some more suffering? So we talked about suffering and craving, or dukkha, however you want to translate that. Stress, unease, dissatisfaction, frustration. The modern world, more or less, and the ancient world, apparently. And so today, tonight, we're going to talk about the second noble truth, which is the noble truth of craving, which is usually how we translate the word tanha, which, the most, I don't know how sure we are of this, but people, mostly say that tanha, that's the Pali word anyway, that the root has to do with thirst. And so it's a good word for craving, because the kind of craving we're talking about, it's not always just craving for sweets. A lot of it is unconscious. We grow up with these set of ideas, and we also have these various biological drives and needs, and all of that contributes to our craving. So, you can crave everything from a drink of water to being the CEO of your company. All of these things are craving. It's a very wide field we're talking about. So the second noble truth is about the cause of suffering, which is craving, dukkha, stress. And something that goes along with that craving is sort of, I don't know if it's the opposite of craving or the other side of the coin of craving, which Buddhists tend to call aversion. And now aversion is kind of a theoretical sounding word, but the reason is because aversion covers several things. Hatred is the obvious one, that people consider to be that. But also fear, contempt, or just indifference to other people's suffering. These are all forms of aversion. And so it's also quite a big bucket. And so if you crave some things, right, that means you're going to want to get away from its opposite. If you're craving cooler temperatures, then you're going to avoid heat. And so craving and aversion go together. So what's up with that? So aversion is the desire to get away from unpleasant and painful things and feelings, all the way up to the desire to escape from your life, we'll get into that with some more lists here at some point. So that's all aversion. And so craving also encompasses many things. Greed is what comes to mind, right? The clinging on to it, but also, longing. Something that you've always wanted and you hope you'll get someday, but you don't have it now. I mean, that is also considered craving. And then some of the fun ones, envy, jealousy. This is all about what somebody else has that I don't have, or what I should have gotten that you got. That all has to do with your craving. And then things like pride, wanting to dominate, These all have to do with craving. Things that we want for ourselves. And also all sorts of addictions and addictive mind states, that comes under the heading of craving. And then fanaticism and manias of all sorts. There's all sorts of things that we can crave. It's not just chocolate. We can crave, the dissolution of the state and the introduction of pure communism. That is also a craving.
Are we
So,
recording?
We are recording. I hope we're recording.
Yeah, we're recording.
We are?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I heard it say.
Yes.
Where's the little?
I heard it too.
Yes.
I heard it now.
Now it does. Well, there's a pause and a stop.
It shouldn't
No, I'm saying that.
It
Okay.
says it's recording at the top. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. It's up at the top. Every couple of years they move everything around.
Sorry.
But so who are we over? Okay, so I want to read a little more from Sumeto's book. Not as much as last week, but a little bit, because he's just so good at talking about these things. And so instead of just pretending to be Sumeto but not as good, I'll just read a little bit from him.
Can you
So-
tell us page numbers when you're reading?
Actually, page 21
But
was the version of Sumeto's book that I was looking at. So,
we're talking the second of the truth.
yes, the second noble truth. So this is Sumeto, when you really see the origin of suffering, you realize that the problem is the grasping of desire. It's not the desire itself. Grasping means being deluded by it, thinking it's really me and mine. So you might say, these desires are me, and there's something wrong with me for having them, or I don't like the way I am now, I have to become something else, or I have to get rid of something before I can become what I want to be. All this is desire. This is the grasping. So you listen to it with bare attention, and bare attention is one of these magic Buddhist phrases that people use, having to do with meditation. You listen to it with bare attention, not saying it's good or bad, but merely recognizing it for what it is. And then a little bit later he says, if we contemplate desires and listen to them, we are actually no longer attaching to them. We are just allowing them to be the way they are. Then we come to the realization that the origin of suffering, desire, this craving, can be laid aside and let go of. A little more Sumeto here. Why is my tablet messing up? Okay. How do you let go of things? This means that you leave them as they are. It doesn't mean you annihilate them or throw them away. It's more like sitting them down and letting them be. And then a little later he says, it's not a matter of analyzing and endlessly making more of a problem about them, but of practicing that state of leaving things alone, letting go of them. At first you let go, but then you pick them up again because the habit of grasping is so strong. But at least you have the idea. If you can let go of something a little bit, you realize what that feels like. So that's Sumeto. And so what's he talking about there? To me, this is another version of the Buddhist middle way. The middle way in Buddhism is that you don't practice asceticism. You don't punish yourself to solve your ego problem. And you also don't just indulge yourself and just take everything you want. Neither one of those paths is the practice. The practice lies in between. And so, and it's the same with our thoughts. So the Buddhist way of dealing with the mind is that we don't cling to our thoughts, and we also don't try to push them out of our minds and stop thinking either. There's always this idea that meditation means you're supposed to clamp down and just have a completely silent mind and not think. And, that can happen naturally after a while. But that you don't try to do that. What you're trying to do is just stay present. And so it's not about clinging and identifying with your thoughts, and it's not about trying to push them all out of your mind and just being a blank slate. Instead, what we're trying to do is accept our thoughts, but not identify with them. We want to stop fighting with our thoughts. What we want to do is bear with our thoughts, even the painful ones, so that we can understand them. And I mean, this often is sort of a new idea for a lot of people. It certainly was for me, because we usually think there's only two things you can do with your thoughts, right? You either sort of grasp onto them and identify with them and consider them as you, and wallow in them, right? Some of us do that. Or you reject them. It's like, that's a bad thought, I'm just going to push it out of my mind and pretend it never existed. But this is a third thing. This is a third way to work with thoughts and feelings in your mind. And it's hard to do this. This is a tricky practice to get the hang of. To stop identifying with your thoughts, to stop holding on to them and just let them be. Mm-hmm. The problem is, we sit a thought down with one hand and it's like, okay, I'm just going to kind of let that go and just be easy about it or whatever. But then your other hand's already picked that thought up again. That's what he says. Grasping is such a habit. It's very hard to sort of relax those mental fingers and actually let something just rest in your mind. But this is the technique. We instinctively want to grasp at things. It takes a good deal of practice to sit something down for good and actually not pick it up again 5 seconds later. So here's a little more sumeda. It's important to know when you have let go of desire, when you no longer judge or try to get rid of it, when you recognize that it's just the way it is. When you are really calm and peaceful, you will find that there's no attachment to anything. You're not caught up trying to get something or trying to get rid of something. Well-being is just knowing things as they are without feeling the necessity to pass judgment on them. So we say all the time, this is still Sumedho, this shouldn't be like this, I shouldn't be this way, you shouldn't be like this way, you shouldn't do that, and so on. I'm sure I could tell you what you should be, and you could tell me what I should be. We should be kind, loving, generous, good-hearted, hard-working, diligent, courageous, brave, and compassionate. I don't have to know you all to tell you that. So what is Sumedho talking about here? We constantly pass judgment on everything in the world, but also on our own thoughts. And this is the really pernicious thing. We pass judgment on our thoughts and on other people. We're full of expectations and demands for ourselves and for everyone else. Judging everything is one of the main ways that we cling to things. It's like you can't just be neutral. We got to put you in a box. Either I like you or I don't like you. And a tremendous number of other things we just ignore. And so we don't really relate to anything the right way. We're either holding on to it or pushing it away or just throwing it away and not looking at it at all. And we do this with what's in our mind. We cling to some things, we push some things away, and a great deal of things, it's like it doesn't exist. There are all sorts of things in our mind that we never pay any attention to. So, one of Ajahn Amaro, one of my favorite teachers, he tends to say that 80% of the practice is knowing you need to let go of something, but not being able to yet. We spend a great deal of time in this state. It's like we finally let go of one thing and then we sort of get to the next thing. It's like, oh, I'm really just all obsessed about that. I got to put that down. Weeks and months of, trying to not take whatever it is, so seriously. And then we move on. So it takes a while to realize how much you think things are mine and how much trouble possessiveness causes you. So many of the things we cling to are unconscious. We were raised to cling to them. We're taught it's how you're supposed to be. That clinging is just part of being a man, my son. You must cling to things and obsess over them. This is the way. So any thoughts? Stop for a minute. Been talking for a while, as I am wont to do.
Ajahn Chah said if you let go a little bit, then you get a little
piece.
A little piece. You let go a lot, you get a lot. You let go completely.
Complete peace. That's right. Ajahn Chah had a very pithy way of talking about things. So yes, these are good name drops. Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Amaro, Ajahn Sumedho.
Does Ajahn mean teacher?
Ajah's teacher.
Okay.
After you've been in that tradition, after you've been at the monastery learning for about 10 years or so, then you're eligible to become an Ajahn. You might start teaching, and so Ajahn is then the title of respect that you get when you become a teacher.
Does that title have to be granted upon you by a senior
Yes.
something or other?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. In this case, Ajahn Chah is the one who let Ajahn Sumedho start teaching. And I think it was Ajahn Sumedho who let Ajahn Amaro. Sumedho, right.
Sumedho, okay.
The guy, this is the book I'm reading to you, Sumedho, yeah.
Sumedho.
Tomato, that's good, it should be. And then Amaro was his student, so there's 3 generations here.
It was like, as you were talking, and the idea of suffering, dukkha, I mean, to some degree that it has to be seen that just like the sun is behind the cloudy sky, there is a wisdom that recognizes the unsettled quality of the mind.
Right.
That's aware of that. That's why that's feeling anyway. And I'm a little bit stumped about where ignorance fits in, but the grasping
Right.
and aversion is almost like flowers, it's really like indicating what the mechanism is, why you're unsettled, it's sort of, if you're not identifying with the stuff, if you're not identifying with the object of grasping or the object of aversion, that's your own wisdom speaking up, saying, hey, over here.
That's right.
Now, and then the suggestion is like just to notice it rather than attach to it or something like that.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly where, and ignorance always seems like more root underneath the aversion.
Right. Well, that's where the Theravada tradition, everything is very orderly. Ignorance, the craving comes from ignorance. Craving and aversion come from ignorance, right? And it's interesting, Ajahn Chah, speaking of Ajahn Chah, the way he would talk about it is he said, there's a part of your mind, talking about your own wisdom, the part of the mind that sees the hatred in the mind isn't hating. And in the same way, the part of the mind that can see your grasping, it's not grasping.
Right.
And so you have this clear space. You have that observer, as it's sometimes called, who can be sort of dispassionately looking at all the madness that's going on in your mind. And so you take a step back and identify with that observer. Now you have a more clear and a more stable place. You can watch all of this happening. A lot of people find this idea of the observer to be very useful. It's not, it's not.
It's not the self.
No, and it's not. I know. Yeah, it's just another construct of the mind, and it's something that you let go of the observer too eventually. But like everything else in Buddhism, Buddhism is the raft, right? And while we're crossing the river, we hold on to the raft, and so we sort of believe in Buddhism. It's a skillful sort of holding on to that we do with Buddhism. But, when you reach the other side, you let go of Buddhism too. But yeah, that observer is one of those things that for a time in your practice, many people find this to be a very helpful concept. Then eventually the observer goes away too, and there's just awareness, But it's a way to think about it, a way to find that clear spot that's not crazy.
I feel like I'm I have experience in between the observer, wisdom, witness, and still being very attached to the experiences of it. Like I'm in the middle of it right now. My dad's having a knee replacement, and so I've just been like jotting down observations of how I'm experiencing it with my mom, and like I've got like 5 different observations going on, 5 different parts of me. Like there's this little girl that's going on, there's this adult, there's this teenager, And like, then there's this protector that, or this role play, and like, so it's like, but I'm not attached when I can go name all of it, but then I become attached when I want to know what to do with all that. Is that kind of that in between?
Right. And I mean, that's the way you work with it. You realize as you start trying this stuff that you are not one thing. No. You are a collection of traits and tendencies and habits and beliefs. And sometimes, the way Ajahn Amaro would talk about this is it's a committee, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is there's the toddler that's on the committee, that just demands what it wants when it wants it. And so what he'll say is, you have to let wisdom chair the committee. Wisdom needs to make the final decision. You don't let the toddler take the wheel of the car and drive everybody, the committee, to where you're going. You need to put wisdom in the driver's seat. And you do have that wisdom, even if you don't believe it. We're just not used to thinking of ourselves as being so in so many pieces,
Right.
But, Theravada Buddhism is nothing but a list of the things that you are, none of them being a self. And so, we are all of our different feelings and different, as different moods come up, right, it can change your outlook completely. Have you known anybody who gets hangry? This is the most shocking thing. When I met somebody who really had that clinical kind of hangry, they were a different person. If it had been too long since the last meal, it's like, get some food into that person, But your moods change and your personality changes. In every different situation, you are a slightly different person, right? We're very situational.
I think I'm attaching to, because I now know just enough to want to know it all, right? Like, so I've got this, I see the wisdom, I can be the wisdom, but then the wisdom can't drive the bus. The wisdom still, like, lets the child come over.
Somebody else grabs the wheel.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, and it feels very vulnerable and, tiring, because I've been at this so long, and it's like,
Right.
ooh. And I've only been at it 6 years, and y'all can say, it's been so great, because you can say, however long y'all been at it. That's good to know, but
Right, but I'm still down here,
Yeah, but that.
And I heard this somewhere, I think from one of the know-it-alls up there.
Up there, yes.
There's no continuity in mind and way. It's
Right.
It's flickering all the time. There's a semblance like a movie.
Are we heading towards the Abhidharma here? But continue.
Probably, yeah. It's like in my own muddled kind of stew of all that stuff is like, as I understand it, is like, it's much more porous. When we're in the middle of a klesha or in the middle of an emotional attack or angry or afraid or something like this, it feels very solid and continuous, no space in it. But there's
Right.
times, and I think, strangely enough, you think about really good funerals, where there's a lot of laughter and tears and like softness and richness and so forth, and at a time where, and that's a really good example where you can just sort of like flip, like that, and there's a lot of space, which makes a good funeral a good funeral, But if you're hangry, it's like there's no space whatsoever.
It's blocked out, right?
And I will say that as I'm not a good meditator, but I've been doing it a long time, and I know that there's times even in pretty high dungeon, is that the word? That there's actually quite a few little windows and stuff in there that I can see what an idiot I'm being, yet I can't stop it, But I think that's what happens, is little wedges happen, that you start getting a little fresh air in those solid blocks of what you think is, I'm so angry, or I'm so this or that, so forth. So, but the kind of shuddering, that kind of instant, and then we just
Right.
Would the word porous come in, what you're describing, or porous?
Porous,
Porous, okay.
Sure.
I've heard that used, I didn't
Yeah.
understand what they meant, you did
Yeah.
a little bit better job, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
tempting to lose things.
But yeah, so we're very changeable. We think we're one thing. We think we're this identity that's always been here, and I'm more or less the same person I was when I was 6 years old, and I'll be the same when I'm 90. We you know, you can say, well, that's obviously not true, but we sort of believe it's true, that there's this thread of continuity. But when you look carefully at what's going on in your mind, there's no thread. And like you say, when not for the beginning meditator usually, but as when you're in a stable meditative state, you can see little personalities come and go like this. You're a different person several times a second. So that's a little Abhidharma.
Yeah.
Buddhist.
Abhidharma.
This is a book of very dry Buddhist philosophy. But I will not be talking about the Abhidharma. The Abhidharma has some good things in it, and things that I really don't like. So I have a difficult relationship with the Abhidharma, as do many people in the tradition that I follow, the Thai Forest, Theravada.
The Abhidharma literally means like the science of Buddhism. It's this sort of analysis of how thought creates personality.
Oh, that's very
It's very minute detail
Right.
of things.
The 52 things that compose,
Yeah, I think
the mind
there's a
and all
chapter in
that.
here, but I don't think we included it.
I mean, like I say,
Particularly difficult to read.
Yeah, it's really hard to read.
It's dry.
What's the one by
It's an acquired
Trungpa?
taste.
The development of ego.
right.
He
it's
does
sort
the
of
five skandhas, I think.
as an Abhidharma-esque thing.
It's-
Right. Well, the five skandhas, that's to me, that's deep Buddhism, and we will get there. But,
We may or we may not, I don't know, it's pretty far, but I was gonna say too, there's an Ajahn Chah reading in here, are we gonna do that chapter 7? Maybe,
Well, I forgot the.
there is a chapter called Our Real Home.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd actually
So that's
suggested
just-
that early on, just as an outside reading. We may come back to it officially.
Yeah, maybe we can come back to it, it's really.
It's sort of meandering, as his talks always are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Abhidharma, yeah. It's in the
Abhidharma,
glossary.
So,
Okay.
Abhidharma.
right. Not for the faint of heart.
I'm not joking.
So cool beans. So I'm going to press on. Have a little bit more. Okay, a lot. So we want to understand our craving. That's what we're talking about tonight, is craving. Grasping, ownership. So how do we start? Well, what we're trying to do is to change our relationship to our thoughts and our feelings, to all our internal weather. And how do we do that? Like we said, we don't identify with them, we don't fight with them, we just see them for what they really are. Thoughts and feelings are just things that your mind generates on its own. See, we have such an ownership of our mind, but it's not true. The mind generates thoughts the same way that an apple tree makes apples. It's just what it does. Whether you're watching it or not, your mind generates thoughts. They are not you or yours. They're just thoughts that the mind generates. So some are useful and some are not. And it's up to you to decide what to keep and what to set aside. The Buddha had this famous sutra, that he looked at his thoughts, and some thoughts were skillful and some were unskillful, and he just made two piles out of them, and so that he would focus on the and following up on the skillful thoughts, and the unskillful thoughts he just set aside because, they weren't going to help him. And so we learn to, we were just now saying, we got to stop judging things, but we are sort of in a scientific mode here. And so we do want to look at all of the thoughts that come up in our mind all day and be able to say, how useful is that going to be? Is this a good way to approach this? Or is this just, some childish negativity that I really just need to set aside and not feed it any more attention right now? And so, you want to get away from the knee-jerk reactive sort of judging, which is what we usually do. You don't even have to think about it. You just know if you like something or don't like something. Like you see that guy who's in the next cube who always does his voicemail on speakerphone, and it's like you don't even remember his name before you just can't stand it. You know, that reaction just comes up. So that's the kind of judging that we want to step away from. What we want to do is to evaluate things with our wisdom. It's like, yeah, that guy's annoying, but he is my coworker, and so how do I really need to relate to him? You know, invite wisdom to be at the wheel when you make your comment to him, whatever that may be. So, thoughts aren't you, they aren't the truth necessarily, and you don't have to listen to them. And they aren't some evil thing that you need to smash either. A thought is just a thought, and if you leave it alone, it will eventually fade and usually get replaced by something else. You know, watching your thoughts just silently replace one another all day long, you know, you realize how inconstant your mind really is. And I guess, you know, you might think, well, this sounds a lot like cognitive behavior therapy or something. And it does sound a lot like cognitive behavior therapy. There's a lot of similar ideas, you know, and between the two. Although I don't think we're violating their copyright, though. I think we were first. But yes, there are therapies now, acceptance and commitment therapy, and there's all of these sort of Buddhist adjacent sounding things. And, you know, that's all good to me. Might as well make use of that wisdom. So, we are so entranced with our thoughts that we always forget how impermanent they are. You might have some powerful craving or fear or hatred, but by the next day or the next month, or sometimes just 5 minutes later, you don't even care. It's gone out of your head, right? That thing that was eating you up yesterday, you haven't thought about all morning until you remember it. It's like, oh, dang it. You know, and now you're on it again. But so our thoughts are, we think that, oh, I spent that whole year being sad or whatever. You know, we have this very permanent sort of consistent idea about how our minds work, but they don't. Our thoughts are changing all the time. You know, even if overall it was a sad day, there were still moments that at least weren't sad if they weren't sparklingly happy, you know, and so there's always these gaps, like you were saying. There's this spaciousness. Now I'm sounding like a Mahayana teacher. There's this spacious mind it's always there, and sometimes you drift into it and then you come back to clinging to something, but it is there if you learn to notice when you pass through those more pleasant areas. They are, you know, they are a place you can learn to hang out more. So yeah, eventually it's like, yeah, that guy said that thing, but today I just don't care. You know, it's whatever. And of course, wouldn't it be nice to get to have that don't care like right at the beginning, right? So you don't spend all day stewing, you know, that would be nice. To reach that wisdom point of view without having to wait for your bad mood to lift. Yeah, so what if you were so mindful that your thoughts could never trap you into doing things you regret? You could catch problems before they turn into a word or a deed that you can't take back. This is the ideal of the Buddhist way of interacting with the world, is you know your mind so well that it has a hard time fooling you anymore. It doesn't trip you up nearly the way it used to. So, the self. It's a somewhat unique thing about the Buddhist understanding of craving in how the self fits into it. Buddhism says that our fixation on the self, the self-concept, the self-image that we have, causes a lot of problems. Because when you have an idea, right, it's not just an idea like an idea somebody else might have it. No, it's my idea. Please, you know, be careful. This is my idea. And if someone criticizes the idea I had, they're criticizing me, right? You know, sometimes you can rise above that and sometimes you can't. Right? You know, they say, well, who did this? This is stupid. I did that, you know. It's very personal. It can be. If I say how I think something ought to be done and people do it some other way, they're discounting my very smart idea. And you know what? They'll regret it. This is the way we are. If somebody takes credit for something I did, I mean, yeah, they're sort of taking advantage of you, but they stole my idea. They're getting my credit. You see where I'm going with this. If somebody says something bad about my group, well, that's the same as you said something bad about me, right? We identify with our groups and our thoughts and this and that. and it's, so it's kind of like, what did you say? The antenna goes up, the clinging double take. What? That part of your mind that's grasping, suddenly is alerted. Somebody's taking advantage of you. Somebody's taking something that's yours. Somebody's raining on your parade. Somebody eats all the donuts at the office before you get one. They didn't just eat the last donut. No, they ate my donut, and that was really rude of them. So Buddhism has words for this: I-making and mind-making, this thing that we do all the time. Ahankara, mamankara. You don't have to, please don't try to remember those. But I'm just saying that Buddhism has special words just for this process that we do all the time with everything. Everything becomes me and mine and I. And what Buddhism wants to teach you what to do is how to smell this process. It has a certain taste. It has a certain feel in the mind when that self-grasping is activated. It's not like just thinking about some interesting new scientific theory. Oh, what if the universe is triangular? Well, isn't that interesting? You don't have any investment in that, But, somebody, brings the apple pie that you were going to bring and they made it a different way and people like it better. This is a problem. So, we're trying to be a little more scientific. And, right. So some things you identify with and some things you don't, and it's very instructive to observe the feeling tone, the difference in feeling between those two situations. All right. It can be very personal. You can feel wounded in a very personal way. And that feeling of wounded ego, that is so second arrow, right? We talked about the second arrow last time, right? The first arrow is life causes me a pain. And the second arrow is I reject that pain, I'm going to fight against it, I shouldn't be treated this way. This is all wrong. That second arrow, that hurt possessiveness, it's a very good indicator. So, Theravada Buddhism, you may have heard this, has lists. It has lists. And I would like to talk about a few of the lists that the Theravadins use to classify this clinging situation. However, the first one is one that's really more popular in Mahayana Buddhism, but I like it as well. And it's the three poisons. Coming back to, now we're going to get back to ignorance. So in Theravada Buddhism, they're called the unwholesome roots, but the three poisons is a much more colorful name. And so let's go with that. And so greed, aversion, and delusion. Right, and delusion, you can say / ignorance. This is where the ignorance comes in. And we talked about greed and aversion already. You got hatred, fear, and indifference, and all those things for aversion. And then delusion. The Buddhist idea of being deluded, it comes from this basic ignorance that we have about the world, and it tends to involve several things. One is that thinking that all these impermanent, unreliable, unwholesome things are actually helpful and we want to grab onto them. That's one kind of delusion, is thinking that bad things are good. We do this a lot, wishful thinking, And then the other sort of delusion is about me and mine, clinging to that self-image, trying to defend it. Greed, aversion, and delusion. I've lost something. What have I lost? It slipped out of my notes completely. Yeah, and so you can go throughout the day, and when you run into things, the way people are acting or the way you're thinking, you can try to classify it as, is that greed, aversion, or delusion? If it's helpful and sort of friendly and all of that and generous, then maybe it's not any of those things. But so much of what happens in the world, is greed, hatred, and delusion. Or that's what I lost my notes. The way I like to think of it sometimes is thieves, bullies, and cranks. Right? When I'm reading the newspaper, it's like thief, crank, bully, thief. You know, I can classify everybody who makes the news, most of them, in one of these categories, you know, or gluttony, cruelty, and indifference to the suffering of others. I have so many synonyms for the three poisons. Yeah, I think about them too often because the world makes me think about them. So anyway, some fun things that might help you think about your thoughts and the world. The three poisons. Some more lists. The traditional Theravada way of understanding craving is to divide it into three other things. One is sense pleasure, kamatanha. This is anything that just feels good, a good meal, you know, gambling, you know, all addictions fall into this. It's just that sort of bodily and very base mental enjoyment of something. We easily, you know, we crave that and we easily get addicted to it. And the second one, so the sense pleasure is one. The second one is becoming. And what do I mean by becoming? Bhavatanha. This is sort of like what you want to be in this world, what you want to be when you grow up. You want to fulfill a vision of yourself. And, you know, this can be very noble. It's not like this is gambling or something, you know, but, you know, you say, I am going to become a doctor and, you know, I am going to live the life that I dream of. You know, that's all wonderful and more power to you, but that is craving. You are craving this vision of the self and what you want it to be. And so, you know, when you live as a householder in the world, this is expected of you, right? This is one of those sorts of cravings that you, as a man or as a woman, you know, are expected to do. I need to, you know, whatever, to, you know, traditional feminine roles, you know, I need to have the perfect house and raise the perfect family and all of that, you know, that this is what Madison Avenue would like you to believe is your lot in life, you know. And so we have all these things we want to be. And the third one, so we have sense pleasure, becoming, and the third one is vibhavatanha, not becoming, to get out of some identity that we are in. And we've all, you know, I got to get out of this job, I got to get out of this relationship, I got to get out of this neighborhood, you know, I got to get out of this situation, I've got to get away from all these thoughts in my head. There's plenty of things that we would like to run screaming from, you know, up to and including, I don't even want to live anymore. You know, that's the ultimate vibhavatanha, not, you know, wanting to not become. So sense pleasure, becoming, not becoming. That's the sort of theoretical way that Theravada Buddhism starts talking about craving. And what's that?
Just craving.
Yes. And like Ajahn Sumedho said, the problem isn't so much with the sense pleasure in itself. I mean, a good meal is a good meal. You got to eat, right? But what, you know, how attached are you to your life as a gourmand, which is one of my many problems. You know, so it's the attachment. And the thinking that all these things we crave are a reliable answer to our unhappiness and our unsettlement and our dis-ease. So, a couple of lists.
It's kind of funny though, isn't that just another side of aversion?
What's that?
Craving?
Exactly. Two sides of the penny.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
If there's something you want, the opposite you don't want.
And I seem to, well, we haven't talked about ignorance, if that is a thing.
We talked about
the three poisons that I think in Mahayana is ignorance, aversion, and
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Maybe it's not delusion. Maybe they just
and
call it
attachment.
ignorance. Right.
and but
What do I know about
there's a
Mahayana?
kind of dullness and uncuriosity,
Indifference.
indifference at the root of ignorance that
Right.
doesn't allow for that. Anyway, something, I was hoping you could say something about that.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, if I was given sort of the, you know, I think about how Chogyam Trungpa talks about it, where we retreat into our shell, right? That's his metaphor for ignorance. It's like we just want to be we want to crawl into our little comfortable hole. It's dark and it's damp and it's,
Smelly.
familiar, yes. But it's our own smell.
Oh, yeah.
So that's fine.
That's good.
Okay, I'm not going to make a bad joke about that, but yeah, we want this very familiar, and we want to just think our familiar thoughts and feel our familiar feelings and be in our familiar place, right? That's how he talks about this ignorance, We do not want to step out into the world and experience things afresh. Oh no, we just want to hear the same old stories over and over that make us feel like we're already fine, we got nothing to do, right? So yeah, that's a good way to think about
I
it.
mean, it is an equilibrium,
Delusion.
but it's not peace.
Right, yeah, you're just inert.
Yeah.
You're not at rest.
I'm gonna kiss you.
You are, it's they call that kind of meditation, I guess, being a stone Buddha, where you're just blank. You don't even know time is passing, and in our little tradition, that's not good when you're that absorbed. We don't consider that to be as useful as some other sorts of meditation, but right, when you're just out of it. Sleeping in the hammock is not meditating, contrary to what many people might think. It is, relaxing. So, one more list. So, we talked about craving, but there are some more interesting lists when that gets more defined, because in the Theravada understanding, there's the three types of craving, sense, pleasures, becoming, not becoming. Those are kind of vague and abstract. But then the next level, once you have craving, then you start to get clinging. And clinging is where you're kind of zeroing in on a particular mode of attachment that is your favorite thing. And there's 4 things in the Buddhist lists that we cling to. And to me, this is a very good list. I found this list very useful over the years. And the first one is, once again, sense pleasure. It gets its own item, it gets its own bullet in craving, and it gets its own bullet again in clinging, because, so much of the world is I'm feeding my appetites. I want food, I want sex, I want, notoriety and dominance, I want to be successful, I want to become the person, and I want to live in the big, beautiful house and have lovely aesthetic experiences the rest of my life, One of those wasn't sense pleasure. But most of the rest of the things I said were sense pleasure. But yeah, we want beautiful, comfortable things that feel good, and so sense pleasures, is a big deal. But then the second type of clinging is about views and beliefs, because these are things we cling to. And you may have known someone who has a particular philosophy that you don't want to run into them, really. Because they are going to start talking to you about their philosophy and how the world should be and what's wrong with everybody. And if they just saw things my way, the world would be a paradise. But no. People don't understand that, whatever. Cubism is the way. No. I always want to say, Marxism is the way or whatever. You think of it just very militant. Or the anarcho-capitalists, the libertarians. You've heard about them recently. So yeah, people have these beliefs and these views that they attach to. So that's the second one. Sense, pleasure, views, and beliefs. And the third one is, it's always translated as rites and rituals, which is a ridiculous sort of translation, but it's conventions and ways of living, like a tradition. Like, if you say, I'm a good Catholic or whatever, or I'm a good Buddhist, you can certainly cling to the Buddhist path. And so you do all the things that a Buddha should do, when a Buddha should do them, and you espouse all the right words, and, you give to your Buddhist society. Oh, you should do that, though. Please don't forget to give to your Buddhist society. But it's like, and if everyone just lived their tradition the way I do, the world would be perfect. So traditions, number 3. And the fourth thing that we cling to, self-view. It gets its own bullet. We're always trying to build up the self, defend the self. I need to be richer and more popular and whatever it may be, and have people respect me. And that relates to the one more list. We have 10 minutes. I may talk about this list as well, because it's also, I consider, to be a very useful one for dealing with the world. But I'll stop for a few minutes anyway. Any thoughts about clinging? 4 types of clinging, right? Sense, pleasure, beliefs, traditions. self. Can you put everybody you know in one or more of those categories? You know, you think of, there's the philosophy professors and the guy, with the gambling addiction, and the person who's, whatever, you need to be a good Spaniard, and eat dinner at 9 o'clock and then your life will be right, or whatever it may be. I don't want to pick on anybody. And then just people who are like, what's in it for me? It doesn't matter what it is or who it is, right or wrong, true or false, I don't care. What's in it for me, right? So many things you can classify as one of the 4 types of clinging. But as far as the self goes, one more list I'm going to inflict upon you. Told you, it's going to be lists. The 8 worldly winds. The 8 worldly winds. What am I talking about? These are things that society, and this is from the Buddha's day till now. You have a thought. The 8 winds, winds, windy day, the 8 worldly winds that blow us around. This is the metaphor. And so there's 4 pairs. And once again, the first one is we seek pleasure and we avoid pain. It's in this list too. All types of physical and mental addictions, like we said, drugs, food, sex, gambling. You're looking for the next hit, and that's something that the world can encourage you, especially if you can use it to separate you from your money, I suppose. But it also includes the more refined pleasures, viewing beautiful art and pleasant conversation. This is all pleasure that we seek, and of course we want to avoid pain. And the way we do that in society is to insulate ourselves, right? We want to live in the gated community, away from all trouble and strife. We don't want to be around any problem children. Just, we want nothing but our pleasures to spend our time with. So pleasure and pain. The second one, we seek gain and we avoid loss. So this is a uniquely human thing, right? Other primates can't be wealthy, but we can, and we like it. We always, the material possessions and the dominance that goes with it, right? Because why do people want to be rich? That's because then they can tell everybody else what to do and nobody gets to tell them what to do. This is the dream of money, and so we love to gain wealth and all the things that go with it. But maybe even more important is the other side. We want to avoid poverty and loss at any cost, right? And now we're back to what do we do to make ourselves safe, and so, we want to have investments that it's impossible for them to fail, right? The stock market has had these all along, and this is a no lose opportunity, you've got to put your money in it while it's, there's still time. And so, so we'll do anything to avoid poverty, lie, cheat, and steal included. It's like, well, it's for my family, right? I mean, that's what you say. It's like I have to take care of business, right? This is just the way the world is, so I'm sorry. But yeah, so very base instinct to seek gain and avoid loss. Third one, we seek praise and we avoid blame. People do enjoy being praised. They want to be told that they're good people and they're doing the right thing and they did a good job and they're just the best ever and, to my face. No, tell me more about what a good person I am. This is, some people's drug of choice. And then if nobody's around to praise them, they'll just praise themselves. I'm not thinking of any examples. So seek praise and avoid blame. And of course, avoiding blame, that we desperately avoid blame. Often just by avoiding responsibility, right? It's like, if it's not my responsibility, no one can blame me for it. It's like, it was like that when I got here. I didn't do it. You can't pin this on me. We desperately want to avoid the finger of blame. So the last one, which is similar, we seek a good reputation. We want to avoid a bad reputation. So this is, unlike praise, which is to your face, this is, where are you in society? We want to be in the best group, right? We want to be identified with the best people, high status, respected, influential, looked up to, listened to. We want our name to carry weight. Well, Doug said that, and so it's got to be true, you know. I mean, he knows these things. Don't question him. To be seen as a good man, a good woman, a good person, a good citizen, a good employee, a good boss, you know, you want to check all the boxes. It's like no one can fault your reputation. And then, of course, the opposite, which is even worse, people do not want to be shunned. They do not want to be dismissed from their group, you know, or not be in the in crowd. They don't want to be treated with contempt. This is physically painful to us, to many people. And these last two, with praise and reputation, you know, there's a special type of fear that many of us have, that we can spend days of stomach-churning nausea and despair because of one word that either we said or somebody else said and we heard it, right? And that, you know, that angst over what is happening with my friend group and am I still in it, you know, this is that clinging to good and bad, clinging to good reputation and being fearful of a bad reputation. So yes, the 8 worldly winds: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, good and bad reputation. This explains so much of what happens in the world, right? You can, once again, just what was it? I mean, put it in the category that it belongs to. So, why all the lists? My God, Theravada Buddhism, what is wrong with you people? So, the reason that we have all these lists is so that we can categorize all of our experience. Every thought that you have, you know, every feeling that you have, every situation you're in, every response that you give or don't give, we can look at it in terms of, you know, was this really beneficial or helpful, or did I fall into one of these categories? Greed, attachment, I don't want to give up my idea, I don't want you to diss my tradition, you know, I don't want you to put down myself, you know, whatever, the clingings, you know, I don't want to miss out on this pleasurable experience that all my friends went to and they didn't invite me, jerks. So many things, we can use these lists to analyze them, and you might find some lists you like better than others. Pick your favorite. There's more lists to come, I assure you. But there's lots of ways that Buddhists categorize clinging.
It's almost like you don't even need to know the names on the list.
Unlisted.
You know, it's like, you said something like the smell of...
Right, what that mind-making smells like.
You're doing something with
Yes.
this thing that's...
You notice that there's something off in your thinking.
And you don't even need to know...
That's right. Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the category... This is just to help you get started, so that you know what direction to go. That's right, but ultimately you're out in the world and you just get that sense, it's like, I know what I want to do, but I'm not sure this is a good idea. You know, your wisdom is like trying to come through the crack there, you know, and say, please take a moment, pause, think before you speak and act. And when we talk about meditation, this is what you really work on, is to introduce that pause between the thought and the action. What goes in between there? The reflection. You know, instead of reacting, we can reflect. Even if it's just for a second, we get a chance to take a breath and let the wisdom seep in through the cracks. I talked a lot.
No, you did. I want to make a comment to the thing before about your many people in your head.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, it's been a few years of knowing that, being observant of
Right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. Look at how much detail you're observing and how much,
Yeah.
you know, they're all getting their voice heard in a way, and it just is that very thing that Doug was talking about, of just resting. That's what happens. It's not like you go hunting for the voices, but if you just allow the space, then things come up and you get to see what's going on. Very gentle.
Yeah, I've definitely handled things differently with these scenarios. With the pause is, like you said,
Yeah.
there's that went and reflected and thought and dissected before I acted. So there's good.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a long journey. either.
No, we've heard a lot of people who are on the path. It's very obvious that you are working on this. But you get a thing where it's like, I'm starting to see this new world, but I can't quite live in it,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
so.
That's it. You're on the outside. I'm on, and I've got like a toe in every once in a while, maybe.
Well, and there
Right.
can be pushback too, your whole system can be going, oh, don't do this is silly, just, go back to ignorance, it's fun.
Yeah.
You don't want to dig all that up. do you,
Stop digging
really?
it up.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a lot more work.
it feels so unfamiliar, and I know that it's uncomfortable, it feels like it's
Yeah.
not safe.
Yeah.
Your body says this isn't safe, when in fact it's actually safer,
Safer.
but it's hard to
Because like you say, your cocoon is so comforting
Right.
to just stay in your old habits of thought.
But the pushback surprises people. They're like, oh, I'm just doing meditation, what?
right,
But then there's just like,
Right.
back at you.
Yeah, if you stop fulfilling your particular role in a group because you see that it's not healthy, people
Yeah.
are perturbed. It's like, that's not like you. Why you're not joining in our hour-long gossip session about everyone who's not here today? What has happened to you? Are you better than us?
Yeah.
So it can be a challenge.
We have a list too, Doug, but we don't call them exact. I mean, it's called the 8 worldly concerns.
Is it the same ones?
Same exact list.
Same ones, right.
Same
So see, now we have the more colorful name. You have the poisons. We have the windy winds,
It is good, I like
Your
it.
little boat and your little sail.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
That's very
Oh.
it
poetic.
makes sense.
that's right. Because, the Buddhist understanding of the way uninstructed worldlings are in the world, right, is we're unmoored. We don't have an anchor to drop.
Yeah.
So we are subject to every ill wind that comes along. This is the problem.
This was great.
Yeah.
You like it?
Well,
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
No, yeah, it's always helpful. It's always helpful. And I don't know if we'll all three always be here for these things, but I certainly wanted to be at all the ones that Cheryl does. And I really appreciate you being here for me because we are two sides of the same coin, and so there's a lot of good stuff that happens when it's like, oh yeah, but what about X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Because every tradition has things it's good at talking about and things it's not as good at talking about. Even my beautiful Theravadan tradition, there's a great deal that doesn't really cover in detail, but that Mahayana sort of picked up the ball, and Vajrayana and Tantra. Goodness gracious.
Are y'all gonna talk to us about those different traditions that
We are.
help describe?
Right. Well, everything you hear from me,
Oh, well, I
that's
know.
Theravada. But yes, they will be.
Okay, the book actually spends a whole lot of time in what he's called, in the Theravada, what they call, in the first part of the book. So that's where we're at right now.
Right.
We'll get to the Maya.
Okay, because I hear those words and I don't know
We'll get there.
what they mean. Okay.
Right,
They're all in there.
yeah, right.
Is the point of the 8 winds that basically, if I'm not, because I feel like I basically am doing all those, I have influence.
If you live in the world.
Yeah, so if I'm not enlightened or if I'm a householder.
Right.
Basically, I'm gonna find.
Right, and we're not saying that you must stop doing these now, because you can't. You can't quit worrying about money. This is my job as a householder and yours. We have to think about money a lot,
Right.
but the question is, how are you holding it? Right? This is the householder dilemma. So we're not just going to go off in the woods and never touch money again. So we have to learn how we can hold it so that it's not negative, so that it's not a craving. It's just a tool that I need to live in this world, and that's all it is. It's not my money. This is the killer. It's not my money. Even if it's in my bank account, it's not my money. It's just money. It happens to be the money that I can spend, and I need to try and spend it wisely.
But it's not just a householder concern. When Buddha was talking to his monks,
Well, yeah,
he was talking to them about these very same things.
they can cling to things
So they're
too.
more than a begging bowl in a road.
But you still have your
But you
pride,
still have your worldly winds.
right? You still have your reputation in the Sangha.
Yeah, you still have all. So it's just,
Probably intensified.
Right.
That's the problem, is there's no distraction.
They're not just worried about, stowing away resources and, a savings account or something like that, but they've got other things.
Right. What's funny is when the little things are all you have, they become incredibly important.
More intense, yeah.
Like Ajahn Amaro talks about the day he was away doing something for the abbot and he missed ice cream day. I mean, he hadn't had ice cream in like 2 years. He missed ice cream day. They brought ice cream to the monastery. He wasn't there. It got hold of him, right? Because when you live so simply, you look forward to the simplest of pleasures. So yes, even monks have to deal with all of this. So. All right, we're really going to stop.
Thank you.
It's 7 after.
Thank you.
Thank you, online people. I think we could have heard you if you spoke. We tested that. Take care. Until next time. So next time we'll talk about Noble Truths 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yes. Take
That's
care.
next week.
That's right.
That's next week.
We have next week and the week after. No, next week, and then 2 weeks off.
And then 2 weeks off, because the next 2 weeks are Christmas Eve and.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, right?
Okay.
So we'll be back in January.
Okay.